the submarine commander who defied naval doctrine, the legend of USS Harder. First, December 1941. In the dark, silent waters of the Pacific, a lone submarine stalked the most dangerous prey of all, Japanese destroyers. Its commander, Samuel David Dealey, didn't just hunt ships, he challenged the very rules of submarine warfare. Between 1943 and 1944, Commander Dealey would perform one of the most daring feats in naval history, sinking multiple enemy destroyers using head-on, down-the-throat torpedo attacks, a maneuver most considered suicidal. This is his story, a story of courage, innovation, and defiance beneath the waves. World War II's Pacific theater was a vast chessboard of sea and steel. Japan's empire stretched across the Pacific, defended by convoys of destroyers, cruisers, and aircraft. Against this force stood the U.S. Navy's submarines, the silent service. Their mission: cut Japan's supply lines, sink its merchant ships, and strike at its fleet. But the early years were plagued by failure, faulty torpedoes, cautious tactics, and a doctrine that warned commanders to avoid combat with destroyers at all costs. Destroyers were fast, armed, and deadly. A single sonar ping could mean death. For submarine crews, the destroyer was not a target, it was the hunter. But one man saw things differently. Samuel David Dealey was born in Dallas, Texas, in 1906. Calm, confident, and deeply religious, Dealey graduated from the Naval Academy in 1930. He was respected by his peers, admired by his men, and utterly fearless under pressure. By 1943, he commanded one of the Navy's most formidable submarines, USS Harder, SS-257. Her motto was simple: hit 'em harder. Dealey believed submarines should do more than stalk defenseless merchants. They should strike at the enemy's warships, even destroyers, on their own terms. It was an idea few dared to try. Submarine doctrine of the era was conservative. Captains were taught to attack convoys from the side, keep distance, and never let destroyers close in. A head-on torpedo shot, a down-the-throat attack, was practically forbidden. It meant facing a charging destroyer, closing fast, at over 30 knots combined speed. If the torpedoes missed or failed to detonate, there'd be no escape. Yet Dealey's instincts told him otherwise. He trusted his crew, his aim, and luck. And in June 1944, deep in enemy waters near the Philippines, he would prove everyone wrong. May 26, 1944. USS Harder leaves Fremantle, Australia, on her 5th war patrol. Destination: the narrow, dangerous waters between Tawi-Tawi and Borneo, the Sibutu Passage. The area was crawling with Japanese destroyers, protecting the fleet anchorage at Tawi-Tawi, where Japan's most powerful battleships prepared for war. Most commanders would avoid such a place. Dealey sailed straight into it. June 6, 1944. Night. Harder prowls, the Sibutu Passage. 3 Japanese tankers are spotted in convoy, escorted by 2 destroyers. As Harder rises to periscope depth, one of the destroyers, the Minatsuke, spots her silhouette in the moonlight. The destroyer turns toward Harder and accelerates to attack. Most skippers would dive deep and flee. Dealey waits. He allows the destroyer to close 1,200 yards, 1,900. At 1,100 yards, Dealey fires 3 stern torpedoes, straight down the throat. Seconds later, one torpedo slams into the destroyer's bow. Minatsuki is torn apart, disappearing beneath the waves with all hands. The crew of Harder can scarcely believe it. They had faced death head-on and won. The next morning, June 7th, a second destroyer appears off Tawi-Tawi. Once again, it closes in, hunting the submarine. Dealey orders Harder to turn directly toward the oncoming warship. At 650 yards, point-blank range, he fires 3 bow torpedoes. All 3 hit. The destroyer vanishes in a column of flame. In less than 24 hours, USS Harder had sunk 2 destroyers, both in head-on attacks, a feat no submarine had ever achieved before. 3 days later, June 10th, Harder detects a major Japanese task force, battleships, cruisers and destroyers, steaming out of Tawi-Tawi. Dealey knows the risk. Every destroyer in that formation has sonar, radar, and deadly depth charges. But he wants to send a message. As one destroyer peels off and races toward Harder's periscope wake, Dealey gives the order. Stand by. Tubes 1 through 3. The destroyer bears down, faster, closer, 1,500 yards, 1 to 200. Fire! 3 torpedoes launch directly at the charging ship. Harder crash dives as the destroyer passes overhead. So close the submarine nearly scrapes its keel. Moments later, 2 violent explosions rock the sea. The destroyer disintegrates. Harder slips away into the depths, shaken but alive. Dealey has done it again. 3 destroyers in 5 days. Word of Dealey's victories spreads like wildfire through the Pacific Fleet. Other submarine captains call him the Destroyer Killer. Every time a Japanese destroyer hunts Harder, it ends up sinking instead. The crew starts to believe they are invincible. But Dealey's real weapon isn't luck, it's nerve. He fights on instinct, at the edge of what's possible, and he's proving that aggressive, close-quarters tactics can outsmart even the most powerful escorts. The down-the-throat shot, once unthinkable, becomes part of U.S. submarine legend. August 1944. Harder departs on her 6th patrol, her last. Dealey's orders: operate off the Philippines once again, supporting Allied landings. But this time, fate catches up with him. On August 24th, Japanese records report multiple destroyers hunting a submarine off Luzon. Depth charges thunder through the sea. Then, silence. USS Harder and her 79-man crew are never heard from again. Commander Samuel D. Dealey is gone. But his legend has already been written in the cold depths of the Sibutu Passage. When the war ended, historians examined Dealey's war patrols. The record was staggering. Over 6 patrols, he sank or damaged more than 16 enemy ships, including 5 destroyers during his final, fateful campaign. For his unmatched gallantry, Samuel David Dealey was awarded the Medal of Honor, posthumously. The citation praised his conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in the face of heavy enemy opposition. But his legacy went beyond medals. He changed how submarines were used. He showed that daring, guided by skill, could rewrite doctrine itself. Even today, submarine commanders study his patrols. His name lives on in the halls of the U.S. Navy, and in the motto of the silent service, run silent, run deep, strike hard. In the blue silence of the Philippine Sea lies the resting place of USS Harder, the submarine that sank destroyers. Her steel hull, torn and corroded, still guards the secret of those last moments. But the spirit of her commander endures, a reminder that courage, even when it breaks the rules, can change the course of war. The war ended in 1945, but long after the guns fell silent, the legend of USS Harder refused to fade. In the decades that followed, historians, sailors, and submariners alike returned again and again to one question: how did one man and one submarine defy everything the Navy believed about undersea warfare? The answer lay not only in Dealey's courage, but in his conviction. A new kind of warfare. Before Harder's patrols, submarine tactics were cautious, methodical. Captains were trained to strike from the shadows, never to challenge destroyers head-on. They were hunters of convoys, not duelists of warships. Dealey changed that. His down-the-throat attacks showed that audacity could be as deadly as stealth. He proved that submarines, small, silent, unseen, could go toe-to-toe with the enemy's fiercest hunters and win. After his campaigns, submarine doctrine began to evolve. Aggressive tactics became not recklessness, but strategy. Future commanders studied Harder's patrol reports line by line, learning how timing, precision, and nerve could turn the tide of a fight in seconds. His influence shaped the next generation, from the cold depths of the Pacific to the nuclear submarines of the Cold War. One fellow commander once said, "He fought like a man who had already made peace with his fate, and that made him unstoppable." To his crew, Dealey wasn't just a captain. He was a shield, calm, unshakable, almost prophetic in his instincts. They called him the destroyer killer. But among submariners, his name meant something more. The man who made the impossible thinkable. Rediscovery. For decades, Harder's final resting place remained a mystery. Only Japanese records hinted at her fate. A desperate battle off Luzon, the sea erupting in thunder as destroyers rained depth charges into the abyss. Then, in recent years, new technology began to reveal what history had only guessed. Deep-sea expeditions, armed with sonar and remote cameras, searched the Philippine depths. And there, over 3,000 feet below the waves, lay the twisted remains of a submarine, its hull fractured, its conning tower unmistakable. USS Harder, SS-257. She had gone down fighting. Even after 80 years, the wreck stood as silent testimony, a time capsule of courage and sacrifice, frozen forever in the dark. The final message. Samuel David Dealey's Medal of Honor hangs today in the U.S. Naval Academy Museum. His name is etched into memorials, his face preserved in black and white photographs, calm eyes, faint smile, steady hands. But his true monument lies far from land, in the cold, endless waters where Harder sleeps. There, in the quiet beneath the waves, the spirit of her commander endures, a reminder that true courage isn't just defying death, it's defying convention. Because in war, as in history, progress is written not only by those who follow orders, but by those brave enough to break them. Commander Samuel D. Dealey, USS Harder, SS-257. Lost August 24, 1944. Awarded the Medal of Honor, Navy Cross for Silver Star, Legion of Merit for the men of the silent service. The ocean was both enemy and home. They lived in steel coffins beneath miles of crushing water, guided only by instinct, courage, and trust in one another. Samuel David Dealey was one of them, a man who believed that the limits of war were only as strong as the fear that defined them. His faith was steady, his nerve unbreakable, and his legend eternal. For decades, no one knew exactly where the USS Harder lay. Her final patrol was known only through Japanese records and fragments of radio transmissions. She had vanished without a trace, her fate sealed in the silence she once ruled. Years passed. The ocean kept her secret. Until, deep in the 21st century, explorers and historians set out to find the submarine that sank destroyers. Using sonar scans and underwater drones, they searched the seabed off Luzon, where Dealey had fought his last battle, and there, 3,000 feet below the waves, they found her. Her hull was broken, her steel scarred by explosions, but her nameplate was still visible through a shroud of coral and time. USS Harder. After 80 years, the submarine that defied the impossible had been found. Even in ruin, she was beautiful. The conning tower, twisted and half buried in silt, still bore the faint outline of her number, SS-257. The torpedo tubes that once fired head-on into charging destroyers now faced the quiet dark, frozen in eternal watch. There were no voices left inside, only the ghostly stillness of a crew that never surfaced. A memorial plaque was lowered from the surface and fixed beside the wreck. The currents swirled gently around it, as if the sea itself paused to remember. In simple engraved letters it read, "Today, Harder remains where she fell, a tomb of steel and silence resting far below the light. But her spirit lives on in every submarine that sails under the American flag, in every young commander who studies her patrols, in every act of courage that defies the expected. Samuel David Dealey's name endures not only in history books, but in the hearts of those who understand what it means to face danger head-on and press forward anyway. He changed how submarines fought. He changed what commanders believed was possible. He changed the very idea of courage beneath the sea. In the endless blue silence of the Pacific, the USS Harder keeps her final patrol. Her story is not one of loss, but of defiance, of a crew that refused to yield, even against the odds. Steel decays, memory fades, but legends do not die. And somewhere, far below the waves, the spirit of the destroyer killer still stands watch, silent, steadfast, and unbroken.